This is not infighting because these people were never on our side to begin with. Those are words I have now rather shamelessly stolen from Raging Golden Eagle. I'm sure he'll forgive me because the reason why the words remain so vivid in my mind is when I first saw them I thought, that's a bit too extreme, don't you think? That's a bit too strident? Surely we're not there yet, but I have found myself warming rather rapidly to the sentiment. Until now, I'm pretty much fully on board with it, honestly. As I watched Melan Mack's response to Goonergate, a little drama thing that happened about a month or so ago that we will be getting into deeper today. And again, I was very hesitant about doing this video because it felt a little bit too drama chasey, a little bit too eating one's own but after having now watched Melan Mack's video twice to make sure I fully understood it and to not give an uncharitable interpretation, no, this is exactly the same kind of nonsense as far as entertainment goes that we've been fighting against for the last 10 years, but with a different coat of paint. Now, to be fair, Melan Mack's rather extreme, in my opinion, take on Christianity is still way better than progressivism, as it, of course, is grounded in, well, Gramscian politics intended to replace the entirety of the Western world's moral and value system. That's still worse than merely just wanting to censor the shit out of entertainment, but it's still too close for comfort for me to wish to align myself with either one of them. So, let's get into it, shall we? Melan Mack begins her video by stating that she is against perversion. Alrighty then. Rather prophetically, I did a big video on this just 2 days ago. Do go check that out, by the way, where I made the rather broad definition of porn as being anything meant to titillate. Why? Because whilst it might seem to be a huge gulf between graphic eroticism on Pornhub and anime girls' boobs and butt bouncing in Nikkei, this would inevitably be the broad definition that would be applied to it, and indeed are now being applied to it. As Melan Mack's primary argument here is that a video cut from the first descendant of a woman dancing and having her booty shake is perversion. Alrighty then, but she is also standing in front of a statue of Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider, who wore a rather tight-fitting top and hot pants. Not that much more clothing, in fact I think objectively less than the chick from the first Descendant clip. So, how does one square this particular circle? We make no effort to. Melan Mack simply seems to arbitrarily designate the things she do not like to be perversion and the things she does like to not be perversion. I can feel that horseshoe pressing against my forehead again, as this is not a good way to build anything at all, as she comes from this from a, in my opinion, rather extreme Christian perspective, where she repeats again and again that this is not her wisdom, this is the book. It is, by association I would presume, the guy upstairs who says this, and that beauty is different from perversion because beauty comes from God. She seems to base this entirely on a spiritual argument, which ends up becoming just a, well, I have the truth argument. My book says that I am correct, and if you do not agree with my book, well, you're a loser, and you're gonna have to agree with my book to not be a loser. You know, this sounds way too much like the whole wokeist nonsense. And, okay, let me get the elephant out of the room to begin with, right? Because she also makes the argument that she has defended wokeism and degeneracy in the past. But she simply says, I don't care because I've been born again. Literal quote. And this is way too much. The progressive argument of, yes, I used to be a misogynist, sexist, racist, and all of these things, but then I saw the light. And now I find myself in a position where not only am I no longer any of these things, but I can judge you with the full moral weight of my institution. How convenient. And let me guess, the only way to not be a loser is to join in your creed, right? Yes. See, here's the thing. I have no problem with Christianity. I believe it to be by far the best religion we currently have, by a country mile and more. But when you get to the point of everything is simply the dude upstairs telling you things, when everything is simply reading his book over and over again, and doing whatever he apparently tells you to do, as she says if she should... I mean, she sounds... lost throughout the entire video, almost disconnected. She repeats again and again as if she's she's wondering what she's doing right now, as she's been connected with something dirty in the case of pornography, and if she was to choose to go and focus solely on her Bible channel, if God called her to, she would do so. It comes across as far too much of a slave to one's religion stance for my personal taste, but... Right, so, the key sticking point here appears to be the lustful intent, which she repeats on several occasions. The reason why Tomb Raider is okay and The First Descendant, I keep forgetting that, is not okay, is because one was created with lustful intent and the other was not. Now... I'm pretty sure Lara Croft was created with a fair bit of lustful intent, and even if she was by some miracle not, and I cannot for the life of me see how. I mean, goddamn, look at her. She is responsible for an entire generation of young boys figuring out that if you manage to put her in just the right kind of corner, or in an air vent, and then repeatedly tell her to move into the wall so she rebounds off it, she'll go, ah. No further elaboration needed. I think she was the target of ample lustful intent, honestly. And I will give her credit here as well, that she does say that she does not wish to take these things away. She merely wishes to, shame people for consuming these things. And that is a legitimate argument. I myself am more than happily shaming people for even considering this line of direction, or for surrounding themselves with wokeism. But here's the thing, once you begin down the path of no, this is bad, you are a loser if you do it, shame, 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 with absolute moral authority, well, you've already put yourself in the position of the greater good. And as we have seen from the progressive left again and again, if you designate yourself to be a priori in the right, well, you're correct. There is literally no crime you can commit in the pursuit of what is correct that is going to be wrong. And in fact, anything you can and will do and you don't do is you being wrong because you are not pursuing the correct thing as vigorously and vociferously as you could. This is the problem with absolute morality and the idea of the greater good being established. And what was it here? She makes the argument that The First Descendant was actually a flop because she compares it to Dragon Age Veilguard as well, and this is again where we kind of abandon reality. Now, I think the argument of a Dragon Age the Veilguard being a flop is justified primarily by the money put into it, because it didn't do terribly. It had, I think, was it almost 100,000 concurrents? And it still has 5k concurrents. Okay, that's not bad at all. But for the last release in the Dragon Age series from BioWare that has been in development for a goddamn decade or something? Oh no, that is terrible. That is an economic flop. Meanwhile, not only did The First Descendant have more concurrents at 250,000, it still has more people playing it today than Dragon Age Veilguard, and it was created from absolutely nothing by a random Korean studio. We cannot apply the exact same standard to these two, and even if we could, The First Descendant is still beating out Dragon Age Veilguard, despite being from an unknown studio and an unknown IP. It's a nonsensical argument, in my opinion. She also mentions that video gaming is hijacked by perverts. And this is where we continue on with the First Descendant thing. No. The perverts did not infiltrate video gaming. Believe you me, I have been here for the majority of it, okay? Video games were always horny. Literally, always horny. It's practically the fundament of video games. As soon as we figured out, Mario is literally looking for the hot princess in the castle so you can rescue her from the bad guy, okay? With the reward being a smooch on the cheek. We've been objectifying women in video games for eternity, just like we've been objectifying men as well, with everyone having the same muscled, burly, short, brown-haired male character. Sexy characters sell. Simple as that. And the moment we figured out how to make graphics good enough to make it apparent they were appealing, we did so. This is not a recent phenomenon. In fact, it's anything but. It is the exact opposite. This is the fundament of video gaming. And as, again, I cannot understand how she manages to square English the circle of Tomb Raider with all of this, and her explanation that Lara Croft is merely a curvaceous woman. Come on. This is quite literally like saying that Pamela Anderson being in Baywatch was merely a quinky dinky winky. Hey. And she also mentions, what was it, that perversion cannot be good, that perversion of itself is corrupting, and that you cannot create something worthwhile and having it be perverse at the same time. This is another way of her somewhat attempting to define perversion, I guess, sort of, but it's more giving it a negative attribute. And the thing is, this isn't actually true. She mentioned, like, oh, is there any game where, like, oh my god, the plot twist in a porn game? Yes, Muv-Luv. Muv-Luv is one of the best written stories ever goddamn made. I love the game to pieces. It has not only one of the best plots in entertainment history, it has one of the most satisfying payoffs I have ever experienced, and it's a hentai game. It's a porn game. In fact, it deliberately lulls you into it being a porn game as a way to drop the twist on you. That is a big part of it. Muv-Luv being porn is actually a tool used to draw you in and then turn it all on its head. Utavararumono is another absolutely excellent story that is also a hentai game. Even has a little bit of blood sucking in it, amongst other things, and lolly as well, if I seem to remember correctly. So, yes, no, you can absolutely make good stuff that is also perverse. In fact, you can look at a recent example, like Subverse, for example. Is the writing in Subverse to my taste? Probably not, a little bit too frat boy. I wish they'd taken it more seriously. But you can't really question the qualitative aspect of Subverse. It is a fully functional, fully interesting video game with a very good shmup combat system, even if the turn-based strategy is nowhere near as good, with excellently animated cutscenes, with excellent voice acting, and with a surprisingly decent story. Again, I just wish they'd taken it more seriously, honestly. So no, I don't think this argument holds up either. There's also the thing that throughout this entire video, near the end, she mentions that she was planning to do this more articulately and actually make an argument for it, but I do not believe that she actually can, because the entire video is purely just a religious moral scree of condemnation. There isn't a whole lot of argumentation in it, and the argumentation she does present, like the First Descendant being a flop, is ridiculous, and that one simply cannot make perversion good is also nonsensical, as I've even brought up now 3 examples of it. Again, her entire condemnment of porn in its broadest possible meaning here is, I don't like it. And hey, you know what? That is even fine. That is actually what my side has been struggling to introduce now for the last 10, 20 odd years. Choice. I would like for there to be a market where people can buy Subverse, where they can play the most ridiculously over-the-top Guna game you can imagine. I want there to be room for Lam Lam's favorite game, Souls of the Damned, okay? Simultaneously, there should also be room for Noah's Ark 3D, which, in case you're unaware, was a Doom kind of style shootery game where you play as Noah. That's a thing. An actual thing. And that is what makes the entire gaming market good, if we can have literally everything. But moral busybodies will never allow that. Now, perhaps I'm being too harsh. It's not impossible. Mayhaps Melan Mack is actually so principled that she will never move to ban the things that she dislikes, but I have yet to find anyone who believes they have the truth, the absolute truth, and condemns all of their opposition as losers and failures, that didn't then move to forcibly push that morality on everyone, because, well, if you have the truth, and you're absolutely sure it is the truth, aren't you morally obligated to spread that truth, even to those who will not necessarily listen? And of course, again, what is the cure to being a gooner, loser, a pervert, a filthy, dirty waste of time? It's to join her club. Again, I would be very, very surprised if this turned out to be the one time where the principle of I will not censor my enemy actually holds out strong. Be very, very shocked, but I'd love to keep the door open for it, if nothing else. So, in conclusion, I do not believe that there is a good argument for censoring pornography, or perversions in this case, nor do I even think that is a good enough reason to condemn it outright either. As I went through in my video, this genie is out of the bottle. We should be moving more towards fixing society's wider issues instead of blaming them on this thing that has been around since the dawn of time, since the first caveman figured out how to draw dicks on a wall. Pornography is not the issue. Perversion is not the issue. These seem to be pretty much hardwired into the brain of every single gosh darn human being on Earth. And indeed, the periods of time when we were most strictly bound to the rigors of some sort of overarching religion shaming us for this, well, they were the least functional and advancing times, where we achieved the least, more correctly said. Simultaneously, however, the lessons of Weimar Germany must not be forgotten either. There is a middle road here. As always, everything can be taken in moderation. Now, I know Melan Mack had already said that perversion in moderation is still perversion, which again just further illuminates or illustrates my stance on extremism here, because no, anything taken in extreme, even religion or moral do-gooderiness, is destructive. We need to find a way to navigate through this, to create a healthier society to the point where we do have problems with pornography that can be solved, like the OnlyFans epidemic, for example. These are all issues that are worth considering, debating, and potentially finding solutions to, but the solution is not the extreme one. I know that for absolutely certain. And for whatever other points I was going to make as to the advantages of porn, well, I've already done so in far more elaborate detail on the porn video, so I'll simply just have one of those little taggy thingies on screen, and you can check that out for the more pro-porn argument, and also for laying out exactly how this has already been done before, how anyone who gets into power does again move against pornography, because it is easy to attack from the left and the right, which is precisely why we should protect it, because it is our best early warning system, and it never stops with porn. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.